Hi there. Are you ready to relax and fall asleep? Let me tell you a little story to help you drift off peacefully. In the 3rd month, by the Wai River, the waters swelled high. Silver ripples danced like silk ribbons stretching toward the far horizon. Chun Xian sat quietly in the cabin of his boat, his wide sleeves fluttering gently in the spring breeze. His gaze was distant and melancholic as it drifted toward the far shore. The chaos of Hujing's rebellion had just passed, leaving the capital in ruins and its people scattered. Once a noble prince, Chun Xian now traveled with only a small retinue, adrift between heaven and earth. Suddenly, a soft laugh echoed from the opposite bank. Chun Xian turned his head, his eyes falling upon a young man pouring wine for passing travelers. The youth wore coarse linen, his hair tied simply, yet his features were sculpted like jade. His eyes were bright as stars, his nose high, lips thin, and his figure graceful, yet not fragile. Chun Xian asked his guard quietly, "Who is that man?" The guard replied, "Your Highness, he is a wine server named Manzi. His origins are unclear, but he has lived in this region since childhood." Chun Xian remained silent for a moment, then spoke softly, "Bring him aboard." The guard hesitated briefly, but dared not defy the order. When Manzi stepped onto the boat, their eyes met. In that instant, time seemed to pause. Manzi bowed respectfully, yet his gaze betrayed a flicker of astonishment and curiosity. Chun Xian looked at him, smiling faintly. "What is your name?" "I am Manzi, of the Han family," he replied. "From now on, you will follow me." Manzi lifted his head, his eyes asking silently why, but he said nothing. He did not yet know that from this moment on, his fate would take a different path, one where the moonlight no longer belonged solely to the heavens, but to the eyes of an emperor. After boarding the boat, Han Zicao was no longer the nameless wine server by the Wai River. He became the personal attendant of Chun Xian, the prince on a journey to reclaim his shattered realm. Amid the clamor of military drills and political discussions, there existed a quiet space that only the two of them could feel. It was a silence filled with glances, a mutual understanding beyond words, a feeling that had yet to be named. Zicao spoke little. He learned to read the prince's expressions, to interpret every furrowed brow and subtle nod. On long nights aboard the boat, when others had retired, Chun Xian would sit alone by the railing, watching the moonlight ripple across the water, and Zicao, like a shadow, always stood behind him, silent yet ever present. One night, the wind turned, and rain fell suddenly. Chun Xian caught a chill, his fever rising, his voice calling out names in delirium. The palace attendants panicked, but only Zicao remained calm. He brewed medicine himself, wiped the prince's brow, and changed his soaked garments. In that moment, they were no longer prince and servant, but one human caring for another, with tenderness and devotion. At dawn, Chun Xian awoke. His blurred gaze swept the room and settled on Zicao, who had fallen asleep beside the bed. His dark hair hung loose, his delicate face serene like carved stone. Chun Xian reached out, gently brushing a strand of hair, a gesture as light as wind, yet carrying a storm within. "You stayed here all night." Zicao startled awake, quickly kneeling. "I have overstepped." "No. I ask because I wish to know. Why did you do it?" Zicao lowered his head, offering no reply. But in his eyes, Chun Xian saw something familiar, a loyalty born not of duty, but of something deeper, something rooted in the heart. From that day on, Chun Xian no longer called Zicao his servant. Ikayed, Imastarisk, and Zicao, though still respectful, no longer avoided his gaze. Between them, an invisible thread had been tied, not with words, but with rain-soaked nights, moonlit silences, and touches as gentle as wind. The tides of history turned, the realm remained unsettled, and hearts were uncertain. After escaping the chaos of Hujing, Chun Xian began gathering forces, plotting the restoration of his kingdom. In those early days of hardship, when trust was scarce and strength was insufficient, one figure stood quietly behind him, not a general, not a strategist, but a loyal attendant named Han Zicao. Zicao was not only perceptive, but far-sighted. He rarely spoke, yet every word was timely. During council meetings, when generals argued, Chunxian would glance at Zicao, and with just a look, he knew what course to take. Whispers began to spread. The wine server of old has become the prince, is a confidant. But hearts are fickle. Wen Sangbu, a former commander under Hu Jing, rebelled in the south. Chunxian needed someone to suppress the uprising. The generals hesitated. None volunteered. Amid the silence, Zicao stepped forward, kneeling in the hall. "Your Majesty, allow me to lead the army." The court fell silent. A man of humble birth, untrained in military schools, asking to command troops. Yet Chunxian did not hesitate. He looked into Zicao's eyes, as if seen through his soul. "Are you certain?" "I am not certain of victory," Zicao replied, "but I am certain I will not disappoint you." Chunxian nodded. In his gaze was not only trust but an unspoken vow. "If you return, I will never let you remain in the shadows again." Thank you for listening. I hope this story has brought you a moment of peace. If you enjoyed it, please consider following and subscribing for more dailies to help you relax. Sweet dreams.